Welcome to Supply Chain Now, the voice of global supply chain. Supply Chain Now focuses on the best in the business for our worldwide audience, the people, the technologies, the best practices, and today's critical issues, the challenges and opportunities. Stay tuned to hear from those making global business happen right here on Supply Chain Now.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Scott Luton and special guest host Matilda Arhin with you here on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's show. Matilda, how you doing?
I'm great, Scott. How about yourself?
Doing wonderful. It is so neat to be back co-hosting a show with you. It's been a long time since the last time. I want to say the last time you were with us, we were interviewing Jackie Robinson's family. Do you remember that, Matilda?
Yes, I do. And I did another one with Enrique, but yes, we had fun. Yeah.
We did. We know we've got an excellent show teed up here. This is going to be a bit of a special, unique episode, perhaps, of Logistics with Purpose, which is always sponsored by our dear friends at Vector Global Logistics. So this episode we've got teed up today, we're going to be speaking with a leader of a nonprofit that's on a mission to fuel the emergence of a new cadre of leaders across Africa. In particular, this organization aims to increase female entrepreneurs across the vibrant continent of Africa. Of course, entrepreneurship is critical for all industries, especially global supply chain, as we work on solving old and new challenges. So stay tuned for a fascinating discussion. Matilda, I'm going to welcome in our guest if you're ready to go.
I'm ready to go. Let's go.
Wonderful. Let's do it. So we'll welcome in Ladé Araba, co-founder and president of the Visiola Foundation. Ladé, how you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, Scott. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Well, you bet. Well, you know, one of my favorite things to do, it's great to have you here. One of my favorite things to do is rub elbows with folks that are really pushing industry forward, giving forward, building others, and because we all win that way. So I'm really excited to learn more about your journey and what you are doing at the foundation.
Well, there's a lot going on. We've worked with over 8,000 girls and young women across about 6 countries in Africa.
Wow.
Giving them the opportunity to access education and also STEM learning. And STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. And we've seen a number of these girls go on to college, get scholarships. Some of them have become tech-enabled entrepreneurs. Others have been able to access jobs that they previously weren't qualified for. So there's just a lot going on, and I'm super excited and proud of these girls and the futures that they have.
As you should be, as we all should be. So I love that work. We're going to dive into more of that in just a minute. But before we do, let's get to know Ladé a little bit better, Matilda. How's that sound?
That sounds great, Ladé. I'm excited too. I know.
So Ladé, Matilda and I would love to know where you grew up. And of course, you got to give us the goods on your upbringing.
So it's a little bit of a complicated story. So I was born in Nigeria, and we moved to Italy when I was 3. My father worked for the United Nations, so he was a diplomat. So I grew up in Rome, Italy, the beautiful Eternal City.
Wow.
Where I learned different languages and got to meet a lot of different people.
What, I'm not sure, Matilda, if I've ever met anyone that was able to grow up in Rome of all places. How about that?
Yeah.
So what was it? So, pardon my ignorance a little bit. I've never visited Rome. It's on my list of things to do. But gosh, Ladé, what was it like to have a backdrop of all the ancient structures and the history? What was that like?
So before I get into that, I want to tell you one of my earliest childhood memories. I remember the flight to Rome and how I kept my poor mother up because she had to make sure I was comfortable the entire time. We arrived, and that was the first time that it had snowed in Rome in a very long time. So it's not typically that cold. So our first year in Rome, we had snow. So I made a snowman. So it's very different. That's one of my earliest childhood recollections and memories. So, coming in, it was new. It was completely different from where I was coming from. Of course, I didn't speak the language, coming in with just English, but I don't remember how I made the transition, but suddenly one day I was fluent in Italian and then I became a native speaker. and then, was eating all this incredible Italian food, just learning so much about rich history in Italy, but also across Europe. So I must say I had a really good childhood, and all of my memories are very pleasant.
Oh my goodness gracious!
Wow.
So many questions, so little time. Matilda, have you ever been to Rome?
Yes, that's what I was going to say. This is very interesting because my entry into the Western world was through Rome. I went to Switzerland as a young exchange student, and I had to transit through Rome. Yeah, so it was interesting. Yeah.
So I'm the only non-world traveler here. Okay. So all right, one more quick. We're gonna talk about fluency and languages that you touched on in just a second. Before we do, you mentioned all this delicious Italian food. What was your favorite dish that you can recall? Well, out of all the good food, probably.
Hands down, lasagna romana.
Sounds great. Let's go to Rome and get some. Let's go down.
Yeah,
all right.
You should.
So what's amazing, one of the amazing things I think about you and your journey and who you are is you are fluent in 3 languages, English, French, and Italian, and you also speak some Spanish. That blows my mind. So how did you just mentioned a moment ago, you don't recall kind of when you became fluent in Italian, but how did you accomplish this trilingual aspect of your journey, and talk about the impact it's had on your world travels?
Certainly, Scott. So I would say that speaking Italian certainly gives me an advantage with the Romance languages. So the languages that have a Latin root. So French, Spanish. So it's pretty easy for me to understand these other languages, but I never really made an effort to formally learn, how you conjugate verbs when I was little. As I got older, I realized I needed to be able to actually converse in these other languages. So I took formal courses, and then I spent two semesters in Paris as an exchange student when I was in college. And there I was really able to deepen my French. And then while I was in the US, I also took Spanish classes. But I would say, Italian and French are definitely my strongest of languages. And it's been a huge advantage for my career because I've been able to work in international organizations and, qualify for positions in other countries on the merit of being able to speak these other languages, which really helps with business.
I can only imagine. And I can also only imagine being able to spend time in Paris while in college. I bet you've got some stories that you can share and you can't share. I don't know. All right. So Matilda, where are we going next with our friend Ladé here?
This is really exciting, Ladé. It is very exciting to see what you're doing, and just wanted to know, apart from, wanted to kind of talk about your vision at the Visiola Foundation, and I know it's going on the right direction in the language, but I think we forgot African language. In all this, there's also an African language. So there's an African language to that, but kind of wanted to gear off a little bit to prior to the Visiola Foundation, what were a couple of key positions that shaped your worldview?
Wonderful. And yes, you're absolutely right. So Yoruba, which is, my native language, although my husband claims that I don't speak it because he does not appreciate my accent and intonation, but I do make an effort. So I think two roles in particular really shaped my worldview and influenced the decision and desire to set up the Visiola Foundation. So first, I had the opportunity to return to Rome as an adult in 2005. So I was offered a position with the Food and Agriculture Organization, which is a United Nations agency that tries to improve food production and agriculture in the developing world. And while I was there, I had the opportunity to travel within Africa, so to Uganda, to Kenya, countries I had never visited before. And I was really struck by how fertile those countries are. Wherever you go, it's green, the soil is fertile. So I really can reconcile the image of these being poor countries where hunger was still an issue. So that for me was sort of a big turning point in my life and career. And I wanted to understand why local people couldn't produce enough food to feed themselves and have improved health outcomes. And so that was part of the work that I was doing. The second, I would say big moment was when I was working with the African Development Bank. And I got to travel again across Africa looking at financing infrastructure for electricity, since most of the continent surprisingly does not have access to stable, reliable electricity. And again, just traveling across countries and just not being able to reconcile the huge need and the poverty and just, the lack of so many basic services, and yet seeing that all these natural resources were available. So that to me felt like a wake-up call, and it drew me to want to do something that would contribute directly to development, but also improving the quality of life of people and giving them access to better economic opportunities.
Oh man, Matilda, that is remarkable. That sense of purpose in those early Eureka moments that Ladé had, right?
Yes, that is amazing. That means you've touched on literally everything that Africa needs to grow, to be able to compete on the global level, equally. And I think that is what everybody's striving for. So talking about finance and infrastructure, what do you think, especially now that Africa has the largest trading bloc with Africa Continental Free Trade Area, what does Africa need to do to manage or work, especially the need for infrastructure across the Africa continent? What does Africa have to do to accomplish that?
I always talk about two things. So the factors of production and economics, land, labor, capital. So for me, the two things that are really glaringly absent are human capital. So we don't have enough technical talent that is actually able to design, develop, construct, manage, and even perform the regulatory services that you need for infrastructure. We need more engineers, as an example. So one is, huge investments are needed in human capital, but also really in technical skills. And then secondly is actually developing the infrastructure. We still need probably millions of gigawatts of electricity being provided to the continent. I think around 600 million Africans currently do not have access to reliable electricity, which is unfathomable in 2022. We need to build roads, highways, we need ports, airports, we need telecommunications. There's just so much that needs to be built. And in order to do that, you need the financing. But I think coupled with that is also the technical skills to be able to do so.
Gosh, a couple thoughts come to my mind, Matilda, and I'd love to get your response too. I've been watching a manufacturing-centric discussion take place about a movement to insource more production and build more manufacturing facilities in Africa. And I think that's a brilliant idea, but it seems like that would need some of those things that you've mentioned, right? Because they consume so
Absolutely.
much of that type of infrastructure. And then the second thing, well, first off, respond to that, Ladé. What's your take there? Manufacturing, is that high up on your radar?
Absolutely. And we're already starting to see countries like Ethiopia, for instance, Rwanda, really investing in human capital, but also the infrastructure that you need to set up factories where you have access to cheaper labor and obviously can reduce the overall cost of production so that your margins then will increase. So we're starting to see some countries do that, but there's definitely a need for a lot more investment and across the entire continent.
Right. And as I understood it, and correct me if I'm wrong, while sure, some of that will lead to export, some of that new manufacturing activity, but there's also an intense focus to produce locally for local markets across the African continent, which is outstanding. Matilda, before I ask Ladé about other Eureka moments, she's already shared a couple. What else comes to your mind, Matilda, based on some of what she's talking about business across Africa?
So it's very interesting where Ladé has been. All these, like I said, all these three focus. If Africa can focus on these three areas, definitely will be able to make an impact. For me also, The creative industry is also up and coming, because when you look at the Africa continent, almost everybody owns a minimum of one cell phone. And then going into the technology and digitization and everything, creative industry. So what do you think the creative industry can be used, to do or catapult Africa into a whole new direction? That's a question to Ladé. I would love to hear your point of view.
I think you're absolutely right. And it's already happening. I travel in the US, I travel to different countries, and I hear music from various African countries, very popular, and people dance, they know the lyrics, they know the artists. We're seeing a lot of collaboration as well between artists in different countries. We're also seeing that local Hollywood versions are emerging. So Netflix is making it possible to watch movies from Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, India, as well as, US movies produced in Hollywood. So there are a number of other streaming media that make this possible. So I think we're already starting to see that. And there's definitely a huge investment opportunity within the creative industry on the continent. But everybody doesn't necessarily need to go into that one industry. I think that there's many other opportunities in other sectors and industries as well.
Agreed. Unfortunately, I'm not getting offered a recording contract anytime soon, Matilda and Ladé. I'm very disappointed about that. But
I would buy your album, Scott. I would totally.
I'm gonna hold you to it.
Yeah.
Gosh, so much to talk about. Fascinating, all the different things that you're involved in, and let's talk about Eureka moments, though, because if anything, the last couple of years has been so tough for all of us across the globe. What's been a Eureka moment that really taught you something here recently?
Goodness, there's a number. Obviously, the last couple of years have been really difficult for many people, as you've mentioned. And I've also had my own challenges. But when I think about, the girls that I've had the pleasure of working with through the foundation, I'm reminded of the purpose and the why of why we created the organization to begin with. I have seen girls who literally had no future, and today they are working in tech. They have jobs with healthcare companies. They are earning decent salaries that have effectively changed the trajectory of their lives, but also of their families' lives. So that, to me, just reminds me that what we're doing is important and it's necessary.
Oh man, we need to replay that last 40 seconds for everybody, Matilda, to live a life of that degree of purpose and impact, and paying it forward and giving forward, as we call it around here. I love that. So let's talk more about for our listeners the Visiola Foundation. So let's start with let's go all the way back, because you're a co-founder. Why did you start the Visiola Foundation?
It is my purpose. It's my life mission. The story really starts in Rome. So I grew up with the privilege of being born into a family where my parents were able to send me to school. Education was never anything I worried about. Healthcare was never anything I thought about. I had a pretty good childhood. But while I was in Rome growing up, I noticed that we were in the minority as African immigrants. So there's probably only a handful of us who came from working professional families. I was the only Black child in my preschool. There was only a handful of us in elementary and middle schools. And everybody else that I saw had a struggle of some sort. Unfortunately, I also noticed from a very young age that there were a number of girls and women who were trafficked. And it's very easy to see if you drive at night, or at least at the time, this is 40 odd years ago, if you drive at night, you see these girls on the street, barely clad, even in the winter. And I knew there was something wrong. I think my young mind didn't fully comprehend what was going on, but I knew there was something wrong. And so I remember having a conversation with my mom in the car as I'm bundled up, saying, can't we pick them up and take them somewhere and teach them a job so they can get off the street?
Right.
So that for me, was the starting point of, I knew that there was something different about the life that some people led, and that I was privileged and fortunate to not be in that position. When I came back to Italy as an adult to work, difficult for me because here I am, a young, African woman who's professional, who earns a decent salary, but I could see so many people struggling. And I started meeting with these young women through my church. And I realized that many of them did not understand the importance of education. The reason why I had so many opportunities was because I had gone to college, I had done an MBA, I had access to jobs. If they would have, pursued education, they could also have accessed these types of opportunities. So I basically started inviting them to my apartment. We would do Bible study, but then we would also do what I like to call, life workshops and talk about education, how to get jobs, and that sort of started it. And so several years later, I felt it was time. I didn't have all the answers, didn't really know how you started a foundation or a nonprofit, but just got to work, putting together some sort of business plan like I would if I was starting a company, through the mission, and also just, creating a structure. And we have been operating now for 8 years. And as I said, we've worked with over 8,000 girls.
Okay, man, so much good stuff there. Matilda, we talk a lot around here around deeds, not words, right? It's one of our favorite phrases, right? Because it's about taking action. It's not about lip service and lip service leadership. And that is what I heard shouting in my ears. Ladé saw a problem. She saw an issue. She wanted to do something about it. And that's exactly what she did. And she didn't let what all of us don't know, all of us, I don't know how to start a nonprofit. When we started Supply Chain Now, I didn't know how, all the ins and outs there, but she didn't let those knowledge gaps get in the way. Matilda, what else did you hear there?
Yes, I mean, what Ladé is doing, I think cannot even be put into context in the impact she's having. I had the blessing of judging one of her competitions. That's how I got to meet her. And what Ladé has been able to do with these girls is nothing short of phenomenal. And so Ladé, let us know what it is that we can also do. This is amazing, and we applaud you for that. Yeah. Agreed.
All right, so let's talk. So Matilda mentioned the competitions a couple of times. Let's talk about those, but also what else? What all does the foundation do? Talk to us about that, Ladé.
Absolutely. So we currently run 3 programs, and these are primarily in Nigeria and Ghana, but we've also had students come in from Kenya, Uganda, Zambia, South Africa, Sierra Leone, and Liberia. So the first program that we run is after-school STEM clubs for girls in junior and senior high who attend public schools. So these are government institutions, poorly resourced, lacking in infrastructure, lacking in materials, lacking in a lot of things. So what we do is we fill the knowledge gaps in the public educational system. We teach them the theoretical concepts in especially science. So in physics, biology, general science, chemistry, computer science. We introduce them to electronics, robotics, and topics in engineering, but importantly, we provide them with experiential learning. So the labs, all of the practical work that you typically do where you're able to tinker, carry out experiments, build prototypes, apply the science to actually see how it works. So that way they're learning and not just memorizing formulas and theories that they don't understand. The second program that we run is a residential STEM camp, which happens typically over the summer, but we also do over the holidays. So we had one in December in Accra, Ghana, and Matilda had the benefit of being a judge at that. So what happens is we have a theme. So for instance, in Ghana, the theme was robotics for sustainable development, renewable energy and robotics for sustainable development. So they learned about renewable energy, the importance of climate change, and how you can create prototypes that improve the quality of life for people in an environmentally sustainable manner. And then they were tasked with developing prototypes that worked. And these were the prototypes that they presented to the panel of judges who interrogated them and basically asked them to explain the science behind what they had built. And then the third program is coding boot camps for young women. So this is a slightly older crowd. So we're typically working with girls between 17 to 25, sometimes going up to 30. So they spend 5 weeks learning basic computer programming. So they learn how to code. They are introduced to web development, graphic design, algorithms, data structure, Python, building mobile apps. At the end of the boot camp, again, it's a competitive process, so we only give certificates to those who fulfill all the requirements. But at the end of the boot camps, we've seen girls then go on to get jobs in tech that they previously were not qualified for. Some have gotten competitive internships so they can continue learning, and others have even become freelancers doing web development, basically creating websites, or even becoming graphic designers. But it gives them opportunities and access to jobs and higher incomes that they would never have been able to access without this training.
I love that. So 8 years, over 8,000 students or participants that have benefited from these three programs that y'all do at the Visiola Foundation. Just remarkable, the impact, and when you can help people get good paying jobs that they wouldn't have otherwise, and then they can start paying bills and affording things that they and their families need. I mean, the sense of fulfillment that you and your team must be off the charts, Ladé.
It is. It's very humbling, but I don't know how to explain it. There's just a joy that comes every time I see this happen, or I get a testimonial from a student, even after they've left our programs.
So how can I want to make sure we Matilda alluded to this a moment ago, to any of our listeners, companies, wherever they are, that want to maybe support what you're doing and help you continue to serve more and more. What are some of the ways that companies or individuals can help support the Visiola Foundation?
We love that question. You can become a friend or partner to the foundation. So we've had companies where their staff have volunteered their time to give career talks. So what does it mean to be an engineer? What does it mean to work in supply chain? What types of jobs are available? What do I need to study to get there? So just talking to them about, your personal journeys and being real is always very helpful. Being a mentor to the students, obviously having that guidance and somebody who believes in you, who cheers you on, who can share from their own life's journeys is also very empowering for the students. We've had companies provide internship opportunities for the students. It's always important to actually have some work experience that makes you a better candidate going forward. Obviously, companies have also provided corporate sponsorship for some of the programs. That's another opportunity. So there are many different ways in which you can support what we're doing. And we have a website. We also have a U.S. fiscal sponsor. So if anybody wanted to make tax deductible donations, those are also possible. So there are many different ways in which you can support what we're doing.
I love that. Ladé. So Matilda, she mentioned earlier in her response, one of our favorite things. So we're big supply chain nerds around here. And we have a question for her about that, right, Matilda?
Yes, we do. And Ladé, I think for the social impact, you'll be a great partner for Vector Global Logistics. But look at supply chain. Everything is supply chain. So when it comes to supply chain now, any observations for our listeners?
Absolutely. So what we do is targeted at girls and young women who come from underserved communities. And I think what you can gather from that is gender equality and equity. So access to opportunities for women. So when you think about supply chain, are you applying a gender lens within your supply chain? So are you looking to bring in women-owned companies within the supply chain? Are you looking at the presence of women in the leadership teams and on the boards, in executive positions within the companies that you work with? Are you looking to ensure that there is no pay gap between men and women doing similar types of jobs and with similar types of qualifications? Are you thinking about how your products and services are being designed? Do they think about the perspective of women and how women use those products? Maybe they need to be designed differently. Are you thinking about, your distribution channels? Are your products and services reaching women who are a formidable consumer group and who typically are influential in decision making at the household level? So there are many different ways in which you can create a more gendered supply chain. And I think a lot more companies that do this recognize it's not just a social impact engagement, it actually contributes to the bottom line as well.
All right.
Diversity and inclusion does make good business sense.
Agreed. Completely agreed. It's a business case. Even so, folks, if you don't want to just do it because it's the right thing to do, there's a business case to do it. So Matilda,
absolutely,
we've got a new thing around here. It's going to be called Ladé's checklist. She just rattled off about 15 questions that business leaders should be asking themselves, right?
Yes, that's a good one.
All right. So let's I want to shift gears here as we kind of come down the home stretch and in our time with Ladé Araba, co-founder and president of the Visiola Foundation. Let's paint a visual here. So I know you travel quite a bit. Let's say you travel to New York City or Rome or any of your other favorite cities around the globe, and you're at the Waldorf Astoria. I don't know if that's still around or not, but it's a big room full. You're giving a keynote to thousands of young people that are on the edge of their seat, and they all want to do what you're doing, right? Do big things, have impact, be presidents and CEOs, you name it. And you've got their captive attention. So Ladé, what's a piece or two of advice that you'd give them?
I can probably think of 3 or 4 things off the top of my head. The first thing which I think we all need to be reminded of is believe in yourself. You can do anything you set your mind to, and if you visualize it and you work towards it, you can achieve it. So you have to believe in yourself and be your own biggest cheerleader. Secondly, integrity is supremely important. Ethics. Your name is your most important asset. And I always tell people that when people hear my name, when people see my name, do they think I have confidence in this product or this service because I know that she has ensured that it meets a certain standard of certain quality, that she has not cut corners, and so on. So it's supremely important to always conduct yourself in an ethical manner and let your name be known for integrity. Cutting corners just never pays off. And then the third thing, it just doesn't. In the long run, it just doesn't. And then the third thing that I would say is, you can learn. And even if you don't have access to, and obviously you're not going to become an expert in everything, learn as much as you can, and then find technical experts in the fields or the areas where you are lacking and work together. We can't ever achieve anything on our own. So it's important for us to identify our strengths and weaknesses, but then identify other people who can complement those areas so that we have a stronger chance for success, or as I like to call it, optimizing for success.
Optimizing for success. What you just shared there not only would benefit that thousands of young people in that hypothetical, everyone needs to hear that. And I love cutting. What'd you say? Cutting corners never pays off, I think is what you just said a moment ago. It's so true.
Yes,
it is so true. It may seem like you're getting an immediate payback, but as you say, in the big picture, you lose. One of my favorite pieces of advice, and I cannot remember her name right this second. She is a PhD. She worked with NASA. We interviewed her here on Supply Chain Now. And it was a live stream, and she was being asked by a couple of our folks in the comments about how they can advance and succeed and get promoted and all that stuff. And her simple response was, do the work, do the work, Absolutely. Do the work, and Absolutely. That it's such a simple thing, but it's so powerful. And if you do it, that's the key. So Matilda, I'm gonna bring you in on what you just heard there. It was like a
Yes.
mini master class from Ladé here on leadership and then some. What was your favorite part of what Ladé just shared?
I mean, I've got two girls, so this was very important for me that you have confidence. That's the number one, integrity and mentorship.
Yeah.
You know, when you have that, these are three most important keys to success. That's what I got from that. So thank you. It's phenomenal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ladé. Let's make sure folks know how to connect with you and the Visiola Foundation. I'm hoping that there might be some potential supporters or speakers or sponsors, you name it. How can folks connect with you?
The Visiola Foundation has a website. It's visiolafoundation.org, and Visiola is spelled Visiola foundation.org. And you can find a lot of information on there.
Wonderful, wonderful. We look forward to sharing that with our global ecosystem. Love the work you're doing. Gosh, just the practicality of it all. I'm a big fan of practicality. In fact, my wife Amanda, we talk about it a lot. But on our first Valentine's together, I had noticed in the weeks prior that she was running in the rain with no umbrella. So I was like, problem meets solution. I gave her an umbrella on that first Valentine's Day. She was not happy, but
very, very romantic.
Right. We've all had a good laugh about that ever since. She cried on that first Valentine's Day. But kidding aside, I love this story, this story of your journey where you saw folks that were missing out on opportunities, that were struggling in their walk of life, and you just went to work, rolled up the sleeves, went to work, and creating these programs that enable them to do so much more and to live a fuller life like we all should have the opportunity to do. So thank you very much, Ladé, for what you do. And Matilda, man, what a great story. I'm so glad that you and the Vector team connected us here at Supply Chain Now with Ladé Araba.
Yes, I was excited. I couldn't wait for Ladé to get on here because I see what she's doing and I do know the impact. So I thank you also, Scott, Supply Chain Now, for creating the platform possible for these stories to be told.
You bet. They're important stories. So we know how to connect with Ladé and the Visiola Foundation. We'd encourage our listeners to do just that. But Matilda, we're big fans as well of Vector Global Logistics. I was just talking the other day when I first met Enrique Alvarez, and he tells me that his plan is to change the world. A lot of folks might snicker at that and might kind of laugh at that. But in the years since, I've seen you and the team do just that. Right, you are doing such great work. So how can folks connect with you and Vector?
Thank you. I think the best platform is to go to the Vector Global Logistics. It's vectorgl.com, a website, and there's more information there. My name is too long for me to even put it out there, but you'll find me over there. So it's vectorgl.com. And wonderful. I'm also very honored to be working with Vector Global Logistics. And thank you, Ladé. Yeah.
Well, big thanks to both of you and all that you're doing, your respective teams. It certainly takes a village. I know that's a cliche phrase, but really, a lot of you spoke about the power of collaboration. And I really just admire what you are doing. We look to have you back. We have to have an update with Ladé Araba and the Visiola Foundation, because I don't know. We're talking about how Matilda might be psychic before you joined us here today, Ladé, but I got a hunch there's going to be thousands and thousands and thousands of more folks that the Visiola Foundation is helping this year alone. So you're certainly leading a vitally important journey. Thanks for your time here today, Ladé Araba.
Thank you so much, Scott, and thank you, Matilda, for inviting me. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you.
Well, thanks for your time. To our listeners, man, how could you listen to this story and not be ready to run through walls? Because and do good and have impact and lift others up. That's what we heard a lot about here today from Ladé Araba. Make sure you check out the Visiola Foundation. We'll make that really easy. We'll put those links in the show notes. So you're one click away from learning a lot more and maybe even supporting what they're doing at the Visiola Foundation. Big thanks to Matilda and our friends at the Vector Global Logistics team. They're doing great work, vectorgl.com. But whatever you do, as we start to sign off here, wishing all of our listeners nothing but the best. But if you take one thing away, hey, be like Ladé, do good, give forward, be the change that's needed. And on that note, we'll see you next time right back here on Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for being a part of our Supply Chain Now community. Check out all of our programming at supplychainnow.com and make sure you subscribe to Supply Chain Now anywhere you listen to podcasts. And follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. See you next time on Supply Chain Now.